today's video, we're gonna go back to the Archie universe, and we're gonna talk about one of the strangest cartoons from Archie when we talk about Josie and the Pussycats in outer space. So, alright, let's go!
Yeah! So, we start off in Red Alert! The Pussycat spaceship is out of control! Pilots Valerie and Alan are frantically trying to regain control of the spaceship because they are headed towards a pink planetoid. But, with a stroke of luck, they, still crash land on the planetoid, but without any damage to the ship. Really, hey? Huh, that sounds a little fishy. You slammed into the ground multiple times, and you finished crashing into a small mountain range. With no damage, hey? Huh, is this ship built out of Superman or something? Anywho, Alex is so overjoyed to still be alive that he jumps out of the ship and starts kissing the ground. Which is such a horrible idea! You have no idea what kind of bacteria or anything might be in the ground. It could be poisonous to us for all we know. But he don't care, he's happy. And he starts to get kissed back. Not from the ground. No, like, oh my god, that would be freaky. But, you know, almost even worse, he starts getting kissed back by this, seal, penguin, sheep looking kind of a thing? To where Alex freaks out completely. And I can't really blame him, right? Like, you know, sure, this thing might look really cute, but we have all seen enough science fiction to know that just because something looks cute and innocent doesn't mean that it is. Everyone else in the Pussycats gang, especially Melody, thinks that this thing is super cute. Oh my god, it's so adorable. In fact, she wants to adopt this thing, which she names Bleep. Because that's the only thing that this thing says. Bleep, 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 bleep. Like he's a frickin' Pokemon or something. Bleep, I choose you. But not Alexandra, no. She continues to choose Sebastian the cat as the team's mascot. Which, you know, is the level-headed choice, but unfortunately, no. Josie and everybody else completely agrees Bleep is cute and Bleep gets to stay. Again, Pussycats, like I absolutely stress to you, you know nothing about this creature. Keep your head on a swivel. Later. Craziness ensues as we find out that Josie has been replaced with a robot. What? Which is horrible, and now the Pussycats have to find the real Josie before they can leave in their undamaged spaceship. Luckily, they come across the leadership group of the people on the planet, which they call the planet Zelk. This being planetary leader Zorb, planetary security leader Mons, and planetary, citizen named Jor. They invite them to the city of Zelkor and will help the gang find Josie. They figure that the best lead is to go to Exile Island, where the former disgraced leader of the planet Zelk is living. Some dude named Karnak. And, well, he's kind of an evil guy, so he's really the only suspect. So Jor drops off the Pussycats gang on this dangerous island that they've never been to, all by themselves. But why? Why doesn't Jor go with them? Or, you know, like you have security forces, why not give them a small detachment of security in this dangerous island that has an evil person on it? Gee, like, I wonder if the Pussycats are gonna find themselves in any trouble. Well, after they find the real Josie, they also find themselves in some real trouble. The gang gets caught in the android cloning machine, and now you have two sets of Pussycats. The real ones, and the evil clones. So I'm pretty sure you know what that means. The obligatory musical montage chase scene. Which, yippee hooray, they're running around this castle. We got some awesome music. But eventually, the real Pussycats and crew are able to escape with Jor's help. Finally, you know, no help earlier, but you know, whatever, right? So the day should be saved, right? Well, no! Jor and the Pussycats going to Exile Island somehow broke some laws? Like interfering in an investigation of kidnapping of Josie, even though they found Josie and unkidnapped her, and they know who the culprit was? That means nothing in Kangaroo Court, so off to jail they go. But things get worse for our musical friends, because Mons is giving the Pussycat spaceship to the android clones of the Pussycats and is going to send them out back into space. Wow, first you're lost in space, now you're stranded on an alien planet and in jail no less. Can't imagine prison food there would be any good. But good news! The bleep that the Pussycats had with them in prison turns out to not be the real bleep. The real one was able to find the Pussycats and break them out of prison. So step 1 is good. Valerie has some wild hunch about something, so she sends Jor back to Exile Island for some kind of mission. While at the same time, the Pussycats expose Mons and Zorb of being android clones. Goodness gracious, eh? This turned out to be all part of Karnak's plans for world redomination. In fact, it was his android that was living on the island, and the real him was pretending to be that statue in the city. What? Man, just when I think I have this episode figured out, they throw some kind of curveball like this? That makes no lick of sense. You're gonna take over the planet by standing still for, years? Okay. But either way, the day is finally saved! Hooray! The real leaders are back in power. Karnak is, double exiled, I guess? And the Zelkorians are helping the Pussycats get back to the planet Earth. Well, until Alexandra completely screwed it up, so yay, back to square one. But with that is the end of this, beauty tale.
Man, that's a pretty interesting one. So, you know me, right? I love everything about the Archie and all the other Archie-adjacent stories. And I really do love science fiction, especially stuff like Star Trek and Babylon 5. Yes, I said Babylon 5. So you think a sci-fi show with Josie and the Pussycats would be, totally awesome? Well, in some regards, yes. And in some regards, I'm still trying to figure out. The whole fact that they just accidentally landed in deep space, What? I don't know, if they had some training, of being an astronaut, that'd be okay, but some random band just fell in a rocket and landed in deep space. And you gotta think, if that happened to any other band, would it be the same? If Kiss fell into a rocket and went into deep space, honestly, I think that would be awesome. That would be such a great show. They already have Starman and Space Ace, so, they would fit right in. But Josie and the Pussycats? I guess, hey, they do pretty good. You have Alan and Valerie, figured out how to fly this thing, so that's hip. But this episode, man, silly. Karnak, the former leader that was exiled on Exile Island. He built a lifelike statue of himself in the main city on Zelk. Why was it allowed to be there, right? And in the end, it wasn't even a statue. It was Karnak himself just standing still the whole time. Like he's some street performer or something. Why? Frickin' why? If you're basically out of exile, what do you do basically exiling yourself as a statue? That part, I don't get, The rest of the episode kind of doesn't make a lot of sense either, but it makes enough sense, I guess. They kind of explain enough of it for it to kind of be muddled through to be decent. But the whole plot, you really have to suspend your disbelief, in this story. And then it makes sense. So, if you haven't seen this series before, you can check it out if you want to. I do like the original Josie and the Pussycats cartoon, you know, like some band going from concert to concert and things happening in between. That makes sense. Some random band, you know, being lost, you know, in space and landing on planet to planet, it's kind of a little harder to kind of grasp, you know? But I guess it's all good, hey? And with that, we do have some more behind the scenes kind of things with Josie and the Pussycats, with outer space and all that kind of stuff going on over here.
So yes indeed, hey?
Josie and the Pussycats in outer space.
Quite a trippy show, man, you know, but still pretty good.
So, as we have seen previously in Archie comics, Josie and her friends were all teenagers hanging out in school and doing teenagery things, which was all fun and good, but they figured Josie and her friends should get a bit of a change. And so they did.
In conjunction with Archie comics and Hanna-Barbera cartoons, we seen the Josie title change genre to more of a musical title when it was rebranded as
Josie and the Pussycats,
which was a pretty awesome, you know, cartoon and had some pretty awesome music attached to it.
But, you know, like that was season 1. We are now making season 2, and you know what?
We should make it completely different as well.
But how?
Maybe instead of doing, you know, pop music, maybe they turn to like heavy metal or something, right?
No, that wouldn't work.
Not too exactly sure how or why,
but they figured to send Josie and the Pussycats into space.
In the 1970s, you know, sci-fi movies were starting to become quite the thing there. You've already had other fantastic stuff like Star Trek, and well, you know, that's the only one that matters, right? And it looks like they kind of copied the uniforms from Star Trek, at least a little bit.
Both Josie and Starfleet have uniforms that are yellow, blue, and red.
But it was not Star Trek that they were copying for this new season, or technically new series, however you look at it.
It was actually that classic science fiction show from the 1960s, Lost in Space. Quite an interesting show,
and to which Josie and the Pussycats did actually take a couple of things from.
For example, the entire premise of the show.
They're freaking lost in space! Like, literally! So in the show Lost in Space, the space mission was sabotaged by Dr. Zachary Smith, which caused the crew to be lost in space.
Whereas, in this featured series,
we get a quick rundown of what happened in the opening credits. As the entire band was standing in front of an open port in an experimental spaceship for, I don't know, whatever reason, Alexandra got really clumsy, knocked everybody into the spaceship, and then they just flew off without any kind of mission inputted in the spaceship's computers.
Lost in space, if you will.
Another similarity to the show would be that of a pet alien. In Lost in Space, Penny Robinson got an alien pet which she named Debbie the Bloop, also referred to as just Bloop, which, you know, really was just a chimpanzee in a little bit more dressing, you know? So if Lost in Space had Bloop as a pet, well, Josie and the Pussycats therefore have an alien pet named Bleep, which, you know, is a pretty good nod to, you know, Lost in Space, and yet it's just different enough. The premise of the show was Josie and the crew going to a different planet, you know, every week, and having to deal with some problems there, which is kind of more like Star Trek. And well, I guess Lost in Space also eventually got to that kind of a premise for their show as well. Other than that, though, it pretty much is kind of similar to season 1 of Josie and the Pussycats, right? Like, they always found themselves in some hijinks. This time, it's just hijinks with aliens. Which is almost, you know, just a little bit too different, you know? But c'est la vie, eh? One of the main differences of the two Josie cartoons is the soundtrack. For season 1, you had Kathy Douglas, Sherry Moore, and Patrice Holloway not only portraying the live-action version of Josie and the Pussycats, but they were the real musicians for the soundtrack. And it was a frickin' awesome soundtrack. Unfortunately, they did not return for this new season. Them, you know, being musicians in their own right,
had a bunch of conflicts with tours and recordings and whatnot, and really could not commit to another album. So this show just had a bunch of session musicians kind of fill in, which, you know, is still pretty good, but it's not as good. So for Josie and the Pussycats in Outer Space, it was only really this one season, just 16 episodes, and that was really all that we seen of their space adventures. That is, of course, until the year 2020. Archie Comics put out a digital 5-issue comic series of Josie and the Pussycats in Space, which really did kind of copy quite a bit from the show, but, you know, made a whole lot more sense. Kind of like what I was saying earlier, you know, if this show actually kind of made sense, that'd be cool. Well, that's this comic book. So in it, it's basically the future. Josie and the Pussycats are a pretty big band, and they travel planet to planet for their concerts, because that technology is available at the time, but things went awry and they got lost in space after. A pretty neat comic, you know, actually not that hard to find if you really like this series and if you want to read the comic. But, you know, that's pretty much it for now. The two main series of Hanna-Barbera with Josie and the Pussycats, we would see them a couple more times with Hanna-Barbera after this, but for the rest of it, we would have to wait some time, which we'll get to when we get to. But other than that, with this, that, those, and the other things, I guess that's that. Also, if you're interested, I created my own comic book channel, 215 Comics. And currently, I have created my own cartoon series, The Adventures of the Density. And recently started a radio series featuring my newest character, Elastoma, with more titles to come. So if you want to check it out, I'll leave a link up top here to that channel and some links at the end of the video. Yeah! Right on, and there you go. So thanks for watching the video. I hope you liked it as much as I did making it. Also, feel free to check out the source material that I featured in this video. And if you want to leave a comment on anything you may have liked or things I might have missed in this, you know, feel free to do so. Or anything else, you know, just to say hi. That's cool too. And other than that, you know, have a great day. Thanks.